Hello dear viewers, and today I want to explain something about chopping in general and how you can use forestry to your maximal advantage and when to clear forests and when to leave them there. So there are plenty of high forest spawn rate tribes. Some examples are Imperius, Barger or Hoodrick, and one of the most important things about forestry is that you can get it pretty early as some tribes, and as others this is much more difficult. So if you are thinking about when to chop and when to not chop and leave the forest, you always have to consider, well, how much population, for example, can the city get in a short amount of time. So an example here would be, after I used up these fruit, would be, for example, well, okay, I will get forestry now, but I don't know, maybe I would like to upgrade a city sooner or later and I don't have the stars for it. Then I think about, well, is it worth it for me to upgrade it now but not have the woods later, for example. So okay, we are a bit surrounded by enemies. Here Omaji on our right and Chinchi on our left. So if you are going for forestry, a normal way is to go for mathematics right after, because they are pretty close on the tech tree, of course, and furthermore they allow to build you sawmills, and a sawmill would be, for example, pretty good here because it would give you 3 population. So I will just build some warriors, and if I want to chop forest, for example, I always have to think about, is it worth it now or isn't it worth it? Because every forest I chop, I won't get back anytime soon, except I'm going for spiritualism, but that's a late game tech most of the time. Therefore, I often have to think, for example, here, okay, do I want to chop 2 forests and train 2 catapults here? Or, for example, just get a sawmill in here. And normally I could take population growth, but here I would take border growth because I can just upgrade better. And here's a good example of when to chop and when not. For example, here I like 1 star, so I can place 2 lumber huts here, and these 2 lumber huts would instantly give me a giant. And I think that spending, for example, this forest or any other forest would be worth it, because in this situation a giant 1 turn earlier could maybe decide the war against Omaji or something, but waiting would be pretty useless. But on the other hand, this forest helps me with defense here, because no cavalry can just go around this bad terrain, and therefore I think I won't chop this forest, but instead, for example, this one, because it also clears the way for wait a second, a forge. Yes. So I will just chop a forest here and get 2 lumber huts. Therefore I now have a giant, and this giant can of course help me down the road. So I have no fishing, and I will just upgrade my cities first. Here, that's another interesting thing. It's not always maybe the best idea to just place a lumber hut. I could also chop and place a sawmill here, but I think it isn't really worth it, because I could just place a sawmill here as well. So I will just upgrade it normally. And I'm taking resources here because there's no need to defend my cities extensively. I think normal defense is also enough. And because I have a giant, I'm pretty confident that I can just attack pretty freely. So I'm getting a catapult here now because I think I can control the the capital of Omaji pretty well with this catapult. And this catapult allows me to just destroy this warrior and walk straight into his capital. And I think this giant has even to be, has to go here to defend against these warriors, because I don't think that going here is a good idea, because after this city he's pretty useless. So about chopping, the important part is you have to understand, well, is it worth it? And to every chop there's an opportunity cost. So if I am chop now, I won't have another thing later, but if I have it now, I could maybe get something different later. So for example, because I've chopped now, I could get this giant one turn earlier, which is good, but at the same time maybe I can't get a giant here that easily now because I chopped a forest. And then I have to say, I have to think about what is better for me. For example, an early giant or later one giant more in the far future, for example. And I think one giant now could secure more things for me, and therefore I think it was worth it. Yes, and now I'm just going to maybe train another warrior and put them here. And the good thing about my catapult is that it one hits everything, therefore I don't have to really be worried about the city pretty well until they are swordmen or something. So and I'm also going to train another catapult here, so I can also just attack this city. So as you can see here, forestry gave me the opportunity to get a giant up, and I would say that forestry can be pretty useful, but only for certain tribes, and it is important to understand which tribes can use it well, which tribes can't, and where the advantages and disadvantages of using forestry lie, because depending on where you chop and when you chop, it can be also game deciding. So now I have secured everything, and I would say that this game is pretty much won already, because these bots aren't very strong, so I think I can handle them easily. I hope you learned something about when forestry is used. So just a small recap at the end. So forestry is a pretty early game tech, and you can use it to get lumber huts quickly, but also to chop forests. You most of the time only want to chop forests if you need to start now, and it won't have big repercussions later, and doesn't, for example, prevent a city of upgrading. And furthermore, you can also use forests to clear a path for a rider, for example. But this is more advanced, for example. Yes, okay. I can show it here now, but there are certain positions where you have to clear a forest, for example, to go through it or something. Maybe could make an example here. Wait a second. Okay. It isn't important. So those are the two main aspects. Just mindlessly chopping forests isn't a good idea, because you won't have an economic basis for later, and then you will just have land like this, completely empty and worthless. And another thing is, at last I would like to say that if a city gets captured, you can just chop all of the forest to get some stars out of the city before it's captured, and furthermore also destroy the economy of this future city for the opponent. So it's a scorch of policy tactic too. I hope you like this and now understand yeah, how to use forestry correctly and when to chop and when to let the forest live. Thank you for watching and goodbye.